get familiar with it. But it lists a bunch of stuff that we think that you need to do, and it lists a bunch of stuff that we have to do in services to you guys. And we can talk about that today, but I think most of you are kind of familiar with this already. But this time we did make a change to it, and that's why I want to spend a little bit of time talking about it. And you might have, when I sent my email out, there was also a memo from the Secretary of State with that. I'm going to explain you what we're doing. But just as a short kind of overview, what we're seeing across the state, and I'm thinking also here, is that we have a lot of challenges to our collection. And we talked about that this spring too, so we talked about it. You guys need to have a good collection development policy, be ready for this. So this is not new to any of you, I don't think. So this is, so we made the decision, or the decision was made, that this should also be part of the library service agreement, that we are asking that libraries review their collection development policy once a year, and that there is also a reconsideration form for patrons that come in and want to complain. So what we're saying is that you should expect and not be offended necessarily for people disagreeing with what you have in the collection. There should also be a procedure ready for that, so that those complaints or challenges are treated in a respectful way, and that you also have a good understanding of what's in your collection and that it's being reviewed properly. So that's basically what we're asking you guys to do, is to review the collection development policy and also the internet safety policy. Most of the libraries already have an internet safety policy in place, but we do see some libraries that don't, so this is just a reminder for that. But in addition to saying that you need to have the collection development policy in place, we also have a list of things that we feel should be in that policy. So that's something that we kind of, we're not overstepping, I don't think, but we are moving a little bit, we're going a step further than we normally do. And that is to just ensure that those policies are robust. Again, I feel that most of the libraries that I work with already have really good policies in place, but there are libraries that are struggling with that. So this is a way for us to get everyone on the same page, basically.
Well, we worked really hard on the bylaws. We're going to vote on those today.
Yeah.
And then the next step would be to get that same committee to work with the directors on policies, and especially make sure it has the wording in it according to the new laws as well.
And I think, you're lucky because you always have an attorney person. I think maybe, he probably wants to maybe want to be involved in that too, in the wording of how, because this is, this needs to fit your needs, and the directors need to have input on how these processes actually can look for them, because some of this can be up for interpretation in the way that we want them to be reviewed and how they should be shared with the board and that kind of stuff. So I think, in my mind, I think my recommendation to you is that, like you say, that this will go back to committee with input from the directors, and I wouldn't mind giving input too, because some of these questions that we're getting clarified. We have some feedback saying that, this obviously not the librarian who's written this. We know how this is, this can be done much better. And so some of that I would like to be able to give you feedback on as well.
And when we were working on bylaws, it was very helpful to see what other library systems used when we put ours together. Joanna?
Just a quick question. So what you're recommending is the service agreement go to the committee and we discuss this, correct? So
what I'm recommending is that, that the collection development policy and the internet safety policy go to the committee, that those two policies go to the committee to make sure that those are, reflect what we want them to reflect, basically what it is here.
And the reason I ask is because it says here that this actually doesn't have to be signed until January 1st of 2024. Is that correct?
So what I would recommend is that what we have put in here, and it's a little bit different this year because of this, is that we're saying that you can sign this today, and choose the second option and say that we are going to be working on this to meet this. We don't have it already because most libraries don't have all of this to be so you can sign it today and say we are going to be working on this and have it ready by January 2024.
Or we can wait
Or you
until
can,
we fully review this.
That's also an option
then,
to have.
And then
You can definitely
make sure it's done by January.
You can definitely do that. The only issue with that is that we're not releasing any funds to the library for materials until that this is signed.
Oh, you could put your Bible there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sign except
Yeah, everything is the same except for the
one section.
Yeah.
So we've learned by this except for this new
And
section.
it's kind of, it's giving you an out, it's just saying that you can sign this today, but that doesn't mean that you already need it. You're saying that you're going to work towards it.
We're gonna work
What
towards
this
that.
means is you get the funds, and you can work towards the goal at the same time as that.
It's trying to find a way to be able to provide funds to the library, while this is being worked on, because it's
Okay, so this part here, though, talks about agree to all provisions in the agreement with the exception of the internet safety and collection part.
Yeah.
But, if for whatever reason we were looking at this and then decided, oh gee, we don't like this particular word, if we sign it, then we're committed to what it is, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can decide to sign it today, or you can give yourself some time and wait for the next meeting and discuss it some more. But this will definitely give you time for the collection about internet safety until January, if you want.
So, if we agree that and we will meet that, when I'm really good with deadlines, I know I'm under the gun.
And I will work with
I
you,
will,
and I think most of this you probably already have in place. I don't think it necessarily will take you very long to do this. But, if there are some disagreements, that might hold some of it.
So, and one more question here. So, generally, when is the funds normally released?
So the library service agreement, usually this one, as I said, we don't really change it very often. So usually what we do is that we send it out in like May, and then we ask the library to get it back to us by July 1st. This time, because there were some changes too, we didn't actually get it until much later than that. So usually what we do is that we release the first quarter funding when we get it signed, which is usually before July 1st. So we release our first quarter in July. And then when we get the MOE, maintenance of effort signed, usually in the fall we release the rest of the money. So then they have until April 15th the following year to purchase, what we for that fund. So usually July 1st is when we release it. So we haven't released it to these libraries yet because we don't have this fund yet.
Now, what funds have not been released? Even county funds?
No. So this is just state and federal.
Okay, state and federal. And state and federal account for how much of our library budget?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I thought I had that number with me. Yeah, it depends on the library. So we have federal and state, and federal funds as being calculated based on free and reduced lunch. Yeah, so.
Are we talking like 10% of the budget, more than 10%?
So let me just tell you, because I had this in front of me before I left, so.
Okay.
I know, it's typical. Hendersonville gets about 3,000 federal, approximately, and about 7,000 in state.
Okay.
Total. And the rest of the libraries, we get less than that because they're smaller.
So, and I'm not diminishing that money is money,
No,
okay?
Exactly.
But we're talking about maybe 5% of the budget, correct? I mean, because Hendersonville gets almost, they get over $100,000 from the county. And I'm not saying that they don't need it, but as far as, that's about $10,000 in total. Okay. I just wanted to kind of wrap my head around how much, and then the rest of them get far less. So really, and correct me if I'm wrong, the county's already released funds, because as of July
It has,
1st.
yes.
Correct.
And Hendersonville does get the most, and we understand why. I understand when you talk about Westmoreland and Millersville, it's a much larger percentage of their book. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they just don't get that much in
From the
book money
county.
from the county. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hendersonville may not be that much, but for them to, it definitely, cause them a hardship, yeah. I think that's really good input, and I do know that, and I think the open program is, the money is there, it's a big chunk of money there.
It's about a quarter of our budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine about half of what the county provides, so like county has, we have about $7,000 state,
Okay. Okay.
So just to give you all the,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Okay.
Okay.
Joanne,
Go ahead.
Fair to ask, is there anything on here on the collection development policy or the internet safety policy that gives anybody any pause? Not saying we should rush to vote, but I mean, is there something that jumps out at you?
The one we currently have?
Or the one that's being added here, right? This last page.
The last page. Right.
I'll be honest, I have not been able to fully take a look at this. I was just wasn't quite sure because of what she said. She was like, this, I thought we were focusing on this, and I took a look at this, but I've looked at many different policies. And so I haven't had a chance to really.
So if we don't go forward today, it's not an objection to the policies, it's just an unfamiliarization, right? I mean, I don't think we're looking at an entrenched battle over policy, it's just knowing what we're signing.
I don't think so. However, again, when we do policies, the committee has to meet,
Still together.
do all that, fun stuff.
Yeah.
And make sure, so yeah, so.
And I would say that when the policy committee does meet, that there are tons of them, and there's some of them that are kind of outdated, that probably need to be, but this would be first and foremost, this would be the first one you would address. Anytime that you look at policies, you look at those major policies that affect your patrons the most, and that sort of thing. So, when the policy committee, that would be one of the first things that they would address along. And I know that in years past, each library is a little different, and you've got 5 different libraries represented. So the words may vary just a little bit to suit those libraries in the past. And it's you think about the clientele they're serving, and sometimes you've got to give them what they need, not, that sort of thing. So you could have just a little bit of variance, but your general overall view would be in line with what the law says, would be in line with what, is acceptable, good business practice.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, such as, just really quickly, like, I don't see the Tennessee Code quoted in this.
This is just for the collection of the funds, it's just.
No, this is for the collection thing. So, yeah, so I would make sure that the Tennessee Code would be in that
and I think that would be, that's
That's
how you want to word it. And
Yeah,
and
and that's also to his question too.
Yeah.
So there's a few details I would see.
So we'd want to
We'd wanna add.
not that we're objecting to anything.
And I think some boards,
Serious.
I'm not recommending that you copy and pasting this into your policies. I think this is, you need to discuss it and figure out how to word, and if you want, instead of using the wording that is in here, just refer to the code, that might be an option too, but that would be another thing that
Yeah, so I
the attorney wants to probably but
And I do have a question for you here. With the whole minimum of 24 hours of library-related training, 24 hours, where did they get those, where do you guys get those numbers from?
how they were decided.
Yeah, where is it at? On number 12 and C and C. So, like, the library staff is participating in minimum number of hours of annual training.
Yeah.
Where do you get those numbers from? Where's the source of those?
You mean when we decided how many hours they needed? So and this was also one that was actually changed a few years ago. I mean, it's been some years now, but what we saw was that we had requirements for library directors, and they had to do a certain amount of training. I think overall we all agree, at least most people agree, that getting professional, like CE hours out to library staff is a good thing. You want to have an educated, well-trained staff and directors to be able to, deal with these quite big libraries that you have here. So this was discussed back and forth and decided on this how many hours we think we want to have. And the biggest change that we made a few years ago was that we were not just focusing on the library directors and then on the leadership, we were also looking at staff, because we were seeing, again, this is probably maybe staff members never were good in any type of training. And I don't think, anytime we deal with staff that aren't trained, that's like often, and we see that now with challenges. If staff are not trained properly, then, they're not able to deal with the, contact with the public and all that kind of stuff. So I think overall we felt that pushing CE and professional development was something that we felt was important to get the libraries to a certain level. And we are one of those states that libraries don't need to have an MLS degree, they don't need a master's. Some states require that, but you cannot be hired unless you have that. That's not the case here. So this is a way for us to try to push CE out to the libraries and get them more involved. And from our office, we usually have at least one training per month, either like a webinar or in person or hybrid, on all types of topics, and we get feedback. So Kate Benson, our assistant director, she's in charge of training and making the training plan for our labs in our region. And one way she does that is to get in touch with the directors to get feedback on what they actually need. So we haven't actually had any pushback, I don't think, from the directors and the libraries about how much training they need. And I think COVID, obviously, terrible thing, but also taught us how to do things online and attend, doing it hybrid, and we have a great system in our office. So, and I think, it's more or less the same type of experience now if you're doing it from home. But one thing with these guys is they really take their training seriously. They take their networking seriously. They take their colleagues seriously, and they attend. So and I think you see that with the quality that you have here. So I don't have the actual source for the 24 hours, the different hours are from, but it's kind of a, collective discussion that, this is something we would like to push.
Okay. And so it's collective amongst the Tennessee regional boards and all that. Okay.
That's kind of, and we usually also get a lot of feedback from directors when we make changes on this. It's usually a lot of back and forth. But when we did implement that, we didn't get a lot of feedback. The only thing is that tracking it can be difficult, but we have a system for that now, so we don't really have an issue. But at the beginning, it was like, how do we do this? And so we track mostly from our office, and then we let them track their local training, because a lot of these libraries get, from their cities seminar, training, or, what's it called? You know, you can get law enforcement to come in and then help with, you know, what you do if they're active shooter, that kind of stuff. So they track their own local training, but we track everything state.
Okay.
So, and all of these guys did that this year, and none of them had an issue. So it's you know, kudos to them to, you know, to be able to get their staff trained. When you look at this, and when you compare it, you know, some of these, like McDonald's, you need to have 2 hours, and you know, if you can't really get away from it. So it's, you know, why shouldn't we do it? So.
Okay.
How many systems have acted on this already? Like we're aware of?
Who's already
I
signed?
know from this in my region or in this region.
Anywhere?
Anywhere, so it's kind of a mixed bag in my, but, maybe about 5 of the boards in my region that I've been to board meetings since we released this, that signed it. None of them have decided not to sign it yet, but, there's been a lot of discussion. And I think the fact that we're putting in here that we're giving you some months to discuss this, and I really do think that you should discuss it. And I'm also assuming there are going to be some disagreements and some like pushback and maybe some questions to us saying like what does this actually mean, what does it look like.
Have you seen any risk from any of the other systems that have previewed this, like, want to see this come out, want to see that go in? That's what
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot of questions. And I think that's a good thing. And I think I would hope that when the committee meets and even just the full board, that when you have some time to look through it and talk to the directors, and because they might have very strong opinions about this, that you can send me all those questions and I can forward them.
Can I ask this question of the directors?
Yeah.
Since they're here. At the back of that page, it's filter software is in use for all PCs in the library. So we already have the filtering.
Yeah.
Okay. And then internet usage policy is in place. We have that too. And it restricts minors for access to material, blah, blah, blah. So really, we've already got this set up. And then my quick question to you, do you see anything that needs to be improved or changed or enhanced with any of that?
It's already stuff we do every single day and have for years. It's stuff to protect our patrons. That's our job. So we take it real seriously.
So,
We don't let any children or anything on any computers until we go through all of the
okay.
Yeah, a lot of that becomes ingrained very quickly. So,
And they all have access to so many devices.
do you all feel comfortable that we can get this done quickly when we look at policies? That we can make it match and make it fit the guidelines? You know, and I'm thinking it would be just to look at it and just reword, you know, to make it fit this and to include the Tennessee Code annotated whatever to go with that.
Well, this here says that the board must meet to discuss the internet safety policy in an open to the public board meeting. So that means we couldn't do anything on that really today. We'd have to do it as a regular scheduled public meeting. And I'm reading it, so.
But even your committee meetings are open to the public and they can now
So
speak.
does this mean, but it doesn't, it says the board of trustees versus a committee. So I'm assuming that.
Yeah, they'd have to meet and bring it back to us at a regularly scheduled meeting.
You can, I would definitely think you should discuss the committee and then bring it to the board.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think that, those policies have been, I mean, you know, I think I feel comfortable. Their policies are good. Just looking at the new laws, just making the language fit, because they, you know, like you say, they deal with this on a day-to-day basis, and, you know, children are in there all the time, and that sort of thing. So
the only question I have is why didn't they put in the TCA section on this? what Joanne was saying.
Well, I mean, I definitely don't want to vote on the policy today.
Oh, no, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, because that would be.
Because it was here that the TPA is.
I don't think it's a federal requirement in CIP. It's a federal requirement, is that not?
And they do that, yeah, so they have to do skip, for, E-rates and all that.
Is this stuff related to CIPA, these items right here?
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's in there, it talks about what harmful language.
And this related to the state, or just federal stuff here in this section?
Which,
They're asking about CCA.
Well, the reason I'm doing it, Stephen, is because on that method of compliance at the bottom, it says as determined by community standards. Well, part of those standards are based on the requirements from the PCA. So, you know.
Contemporary community standards, it's, it's the Miller test of obscenity, it's a Supreme Court case, First Amendment case. I know we have some legislation on that here, but ultimately what is, considered appropriate, contemporary community standards would be up to a court in a lawsuit and a panel of jurors to determine. I mean, I know the state law is important, but that's the, yeah.
I disagree with you, but we can talk about this as I'm going back. I'll disagree with that because I do believe that there are community standards in our Tennessee law right now that actually talk about what community standards, and that actually.
If you want to work with these guys on to put that in policy, if you abide by what Tennessee law says, that's up to you guys. I mean, you have to work something out for that.
Can I just also say that we would normally recommend that you talk to the county attorney about that, so, we wouldn't be legal advising you.
If you want to add, I'm saying if you want to add that, that's up to you guys, to put the TCA in there. This is a collaborative process between you guys and the system here to figure out what you want to have in here. So that's, whatever you all want to do with that.
Okay, I would be willing to put this on the agenda for September. And, you will have from now until then to look at it. And we can go ahead maybe and do that, in September, decide to do the conditional one that gives us to January. And go ahead and sign the agreement so we can release the funds in September, which I know puts them another month down. But, you know, you can always build a list and have it ready to go the minute the funds are released. So, put this on and we can sign this and everybody will have looked at it and sign the conditional agreement in September. And then and then we have new members, we can set new committees and have those committees meet and get started on that immediately. And then we will be ready by January.
Could I ask one question?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. How's that gonna affect you guys? Are you gonna be, is that gonna be?
We only have a certain number of staff members, if we have to wait, process books, it delays getting books to patrons and new releases and, we only have one or two catalogers each, so if we can order till January, February, we have to spend 6 months worth of money in like a month. It's a lot to put on our catalogers and our buyers. I think it's hard to find catalogers.
So just to clarify, the money would be released if we sign the conditional one. Is that correct? So in September, it would be released. So it wouldn't be January, February.
But what they're saying is, and I can attest to this, been there, Beth can too, is that when you get a box of books coming in, there are about 20 things you have to do that book before it's shelf ready.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a lot of time, and you've got one cataloger or two, you're going to put them behind everybody, and you've got, especially with new releases, you've got patrons that are wanting them, and that sort of thing. I do see, and the amount of work that it would put on them to delay it for a month, I do understand that.
I would like to go ahead and sign today, since they've already said that we have time to redo this and all that good stuff before January, so they can get their money. Two of our libraries, I think, really need it. You said it'd be within a week.
Yeah, they usually do.
So they could at least go ahead and be doing that. And a lot of this is the same thing, not one area. I just don't want them to be without money that they may need to be working on right now.
And like I say, backing up on cataloging, you know, when you got a lot of books to catalog, it's a magnanimous project to do. So.
And so in this, we get every year, correct? Because we weren't here for it to sign last year.
And I didn't sign it last year. I'm assuming that Ronnie signed it last year. So I didn't sign it last year.
But I do think it's a good idea. I think it would be great if you would sign it today, but I also think in general, just getting familiar with it and asking questions about it is a good idea.
Well, if we go ahead and sign the conditional provision today, we can still discuss it. We can still put it on the agenda and take a really good look at it, and then we're going to go from there to committee anyway.
When you see signing this,
Uh-huh.
I think if you sign that's, you got by the terms of this.
No, there's a conditional one.
No, there's a conditional one. There's a conditional.
We're bound to everything but the collection development and internet safety policy, which we can then review.
Right. But that's the only two new things that are new. Everything else is the same. Am I correct? So those are the only.
You would update those, these last items to by January. Right. And that allows us to put in things that are currently missing or that the board thinks is missing, or to reject. But they would have to be compliant with these.
The first section that can't be changed if we sign it.
I'm saying is, you have to comply with, you establish policies that are compliant with this front and back of the last page. Is that right?
That's the only new part.
What I'm saying is,
Yeah,
you do
we
that
will.
by January 1, you would establish, a lot of establish policies that are
Right.
compliant with these terms here as they are written.
Right. But they already have policies.
I know, well, I'm
That
just making clear that.
Yeah, you could just take this and incorporate it into the policies that they already have.
Okay, so
I'm trying to sign the conditional one today and still put it on the agenda for next month and go from there with the January deadline. Or if you still have reservations, I'm gonna put it on next month's agenda either way.
Well, I'll tell you that this is, once you sign it, you say you'll come up with policies that are consistent
Right,
with the policies set forth on the last, front and back of the last page.
right.
We're not changing these policies themselves.
No. We're incorporating these into the
Make sure
policy.
everybody's aware of that. You
Yeah.
figure that out.
Okay, so, just to confirm,
Okay.
so this page, we can't change it.
You would have to establish policies consistent with that.
Yeah, so there's a list of 6 items that should be reflected in your collection development policy. I think for the internet safety, you more or less have it, but you probably want to review it anyway to make sure that you're okay, but like they said, I think most of that is probably already there. So the collection development policy would need to reflect what's listed here, those 6 items, but reflect does not mean necessarily copy and paste it, so I think, discussing how that's going to look like for you, but the intention should still be there.
Okay.
But I think, like you said, most of this is probably already in your policies, but there are some procedural things here that you probably don't have in there already.
And we can add things to this policy too, correct?
Yeah, so this is just kind of the minimum what we think needs to be in there. In general, having a collection development policy, some libraries don't have that at all. You're kind of starting from a different point, but some libraries don't have anything. So we're saying this is what at least needs to be in there. And when you look at your collection development, you might find that some of this is already there, and you don't need to worry about it, and then some of it you might have to add.
So how, on number 5, books and materials that contain special themes or content are reviewed by the public library independently for age appropriateness and cataloged accordingly, even if this overrides the age appropriateness recommendation by the publisher. So
I can talk a little bit, and these guys can probably talk about it too, but I think in general, when you get a book, there is like a recommendation by the publisher. We think this should be a children's book, or this should be a YA book, or this should be this and that. We're saying that that's probably not enough. You shouldn't just take this and say, okay, they're telling me to do this, this is where I'm putting it. You need to have an independent, so if there is if it's a sexual theme, you need to, make sure that you're comfortable putting it in the section that you're putting it in, and have a process around that. So it's not like a given that, so that I don't know if you want to talk about it.
I would say for all of us,
Gabby.
100% sure, if anything was a complete stick question, we can always edge it up. We put it straight in adult. So if she's saying it's the recommended, but we literally look at every single article that we put in our library before it goes anywhere near the public. And if it's at all questionable, all of us make the decision and are happy with that decision to move it up. We never.
Can I give an example? I'm an example type of person. That's how I understand life. So, for example, The Hunger Games. It's a fourth grade read level. It is in my young adult section. It doesn't need to be in my junior section where anybody can read it, because reading level wise, yeah, fourth graders can read it. Content wise, it's not appropriate for a fourth grader or a fifth grader or a sixth grader. But it's available if their parents want them to go check it out. But it's in the content appropriate location.
I had that same issue with Hunger Games in a K-5 library. People donated these, all three. So I cataloged them, but they stayed in my office. And if you get the right reader, that is ready for that, it's okay. It stayed in my office. If somebody asked for it, I required a note from the parents saying that they were allowed to check it out. I did that for Harry Potter. If they were under third grade level, they had to have a note from their parents saying they could read it. So, there are ways that you can, that way, you're making the parent, So, but yeah, I had that same issue with Hunger Games and all. And I had a few, not many, they knew. And once they knew it was there and you had to get their parents to sign, they forgot about it anyway. So,
It's a consistent theme between Hunger Games and Harry Potter. We are anti the attempted murder of children. Look at all of them. Very intense. Well, there should be caution when checking those out.
And I did have other reasons for Harry Potter. I started a brand new library now. We had 1 or 2 copies, so I reserved it for the older kids, so that you didn't have the younger ones, So I had to look at collection numbers there too. Go ahead, Joanne.
So, just a question though, as far as the review by the public library independently. So, what if we came, up with a policy that said, hey, if there is any type of, can we come up with a policy where it's like, look, if it's challenged, or if it's put somewhere, that there's a policy that then goes, hey, you know what, we have to look at this as a board.
That's exactly what we want to happen. That if there is a challenge at the board, usually what happens is that when there's a challenge, it goes to the director and they kind of deal with that.
For people to fill out when they have a problem with the book, it comes straight to us and then we bring it to y'all.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we want to happen.
Yeah, that's why I was saying I feel comfortable that we have those policies and protocols in place.
I don't think I'm saying it correctly, but I apologize. I'm trying to put this in a so that I say it clearly. Can we establish as a board what we feel is age appropriate according to the Tennessee Code annotated, so that they at least see us coming in, or or they get something that they're like, I'm not quite sure. Is there a standard that we can set? according to this, because it says independently, and I'm not saying you guys don't do it,
But y'all
but,
are putting the trust in us to run the building that we are trying to protect everybody in the building.
This is a minimum, these requirements here.
but that's what
And
I'm
they
asking,
are-
if we
you
can
do
add on top of it.
more if you want to,
Okay,
but it's just, these are the minimum requirements that you have to meet according to my understanding
Right.
of this.
I just wanna make sure, and I'm not saying that we do or want to or anything, but I'm seeing lots of stuff, craziness in those news today. I just wanna make sure that we're not confined to these. Does that make sense?
Right, this is, you can do more than this. You have responsibility for oversight of the library, I guess it's not a system, it's individual.
Yeah.
Individual branches, or individual, units.
The one, I don't know if you, I'm sure you did, but one of the items in here too is that the library director reviews everything, which I think is already happening, but that the board also get a list of what has been purchased or cataloged newly, so that you have an idea what's in the collection that's being purchased as of right now. So that gives you that little bit of buy-in and input, and gives you that opportunity to review what's being purchased, so you're aware of that. So that's another plus.
We haven't received any of that.
No, it's in here, number, it's in the new part.
Oh, the new part. Oh, the new part, I was like, hold on a second, I'm like, we haven't received any of that, like, are we missing something?
This is just for regional money, this would not be for our regular county money. I mean, if you want a list of everything we buy, you're gonna have stats by the end of the year. So, I mean, we're more than happy to give that to you if that's what you want, but I'm just saying this is for county money. Regional, sorry.
Also, this only applies to the money that they use.
Right, right.
Okay. Okay,
So just watch where their money goes, and then you're good.
We get that list, or not.
I don't think you segregate the money out. You have to agree to these conditions for all your use.
Yeah, and I don't think it's.
Okay, so this is segregated, so you were being silly. So, because she just said
This
you
is
can't.
like, the federal government has restrictions on what you can or cannot do independently of what the project is. This is one of those types of situations, I think, is that these are the things you have to do.
This is a basic,
framework.
basic framework, and then we're under that umbrella, so we've got to operate under the basic framework.
So then, what will we get the list? Where would the list generate from? The purchase that we were just talking about.
So the library.
You could go into their
what I would
catalog and look
recommend
under,
is that
it's a public catalog, it's a public document.
Instead of just forwarding all the orders that they get from the so that's the way to do it. Another easier way might just be to run a report at the end of the month or every quarter or something, and say, this is the list of, what we catalog, instead of having to forward a bunch of emails. That might be a way to deal with it, just making sure that they have,
Number 3.
And the
So we add, Portland itself and everything adds anywhere from 250 to 350 books a month. So you want me to, we print out a list of all of those titles of the 300 and something books we ordered. Is that what we're saying?
I think normally what you would be able to do is just run a report in your ILS of everything that was cataloged this month, and then just email it to them. And that's the way for them. Okay. And it did say purchase in here, but I think purchase is harder. Because
And if we purchase it, it's eventually gonna be in the catalog anyway.
exactly, so why not just
Eventually, maybe.
I think it's easier procedurally.
No, we can do that, no problem.
Well, I'm glad we clarified that. So, okay, so it is. So it's like what the schools have right now, where you have to put in anything that's purchased by the libraries, it has to be made public. And so you guys.
It's already,
But, no, well, and I think that's not what I was talking about, though. I'm talking about what's been purchased new. We get to see it.
In the catalog, you can just go to the library, there's a new button that is the special for new books, new DVDs, new kits.
Well, this would be good to get to us before it says all books selected for purchase. So if you go to see it before, because it says all books selected for purchase, not all books purchased. So it's all books selected.
My interpretation is would be before purchase, you'd have to go through and, figure out what you're gonna get and then run this by.
That's
Yeah.
what
I'll do respect, that's not how I read that. Number 3, just before purchase.
Can I ask?
Well, library's director.
Okay,
And then we
before
get the
purchase,
list of
like the library director.
What I meant, guys, was they review it.
Yeah.
And then if you wanna do something beyond that, that's,
Correct.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying, is that it's with the library director then sharing a list or lists of newly purchased materials with the public libraries. Yeah. That's
So
what I'm
they
saying.
share the list
after
of newly purchased materials. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
That's definitely not what it was sounding like.
And I will tell you that if you get a list of titles, it's not gonna tell you a whole lot,
Sure.
It's really not, so,
I'm just making sure we're going according to what this
So-
says.
And this is why I think it's a good idea for this.
It's a good clarification.
Yeah, this is a good process you are going through.
Yeah.
This is, what is intended by,
It is.
talking about.
Yeah, so I think it's good, and it's good to go back to committee and, go back and discuss it.
Right.
And also email me if you have any, because some of this, like we just talked about purchase, doing the new big catalog instead of having them, just forward a bunch of emails from vendors, it's better and easier for them, and better for you.
Okay. Yeah, the most efficient way possible.
Yes.
I saw that face. So, back to, as Beverly said, we can get their money to them quicker. They can start the cataloging and purchasing process if we do this today. The only thing we're looking at is the last page to change. Everything else is the same.
You have to change it.
We're not changing it.
We're using the last page as a guide to make sure it matches what we already have.
Yeah.
So, do I need a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I need a motion, I'll entertain a motion either way. Beverly's already stated, so if you want to restate
I
it.
want to make a motion that we go ahead and sign the paperwork, knowing that we do have some time to, go through and revisit the policy.
Okay,
So you would want us to mark document 2.
right. Mhm. Do I have a second?
A second.
Beth second. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote real quick. Jim?
Aye. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Ruth? Okay. Erica? Joanna? Debbie? Beth? Kaylee? Jackie? And Beverly. So it's unanimous that, I will sign this today, release the funds, and we will get your chairman of the policies and bylaws committee.
Oh, look at
Hi.
Beverly, take your vote.
Never mind. Never mind.
Bylaws, but they're, yes, they're one, so, but you'll be fine, you'll be fine.
I will because I'm Joanna.
We will wait until September, and I will get the rest of you assigned. And we'll move on from there. So, because we can't assign committees till we vote on these bylaws,
Right.
because they are different.
Well,
So-
and you don't assign, they send you what they want to be on.
Right, yeah. So, well, that was the way we worked anyway, was, went on what you wanted to, and then we assigned them from there. So, okay, to the new business. The bylaws that you have, and I have gotten out to you.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Oh, wait, this other piece.
Can I just talk
Yes.
about this one for a
Okay,
minute?
yes, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. So this was,
We have to motion, don't we?
Sorry.
Have to go back to,
This is still under the discussion of the service meeting, is it not?
no,
she is part of the library trustee.
did you just move on to the bylaws?
She just moved on to the
She
bylaws.
tried to, she
She
didn't.
tried to.
get it.
Okay.
She's talked to me before.
The administrative, and that is.
Okay.
Okay.
Straightforward thing. It's gonna talk
All right, just wanna make sure we're not. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I bet you, I'm sorry. So I talked about this the last time, we were here, and there was questions about it, like, what is this, mostly you're new to the board, so, and there were some good questions about it, but this is, Tennessee State Library, distributes population to each library every year, so we get this signed. These are numbers that come from census, and you should have this document in front of you, so you know what I'm talking about. So the official county population as of July was 2003, 858. So that's the population in Sumner County. And then that population is distributed to the different libraries. And this is something that we do every year, and we have to do that for our public library survey that we do for the federal government. And this population also decides what level each library is in. In 2015, when you added Millersville to the mix, you looked at this number again and looked at how we're going to distribute that population to the new library. And I think I mentioned this last time, but I wasn't really prepared for it because I didn't remember and I didn't really know when this was going on. But 2015, and I have the minutes with me. It's in front of you. The board voted to distribute that population based on several different things. But I think one of the things that they wanted to do was to keep each library in the level that they were in the original library, so that Hendersonville wouldn't lose their level, Gallatin wouldn't, Westmoreland wouldn't, and Portland wouldn't. So based on that, they decided to distribute the population the way they did. And in the minutes, you can see what that is. Looks like Westmoreland is 4.6. Portland is 16.9. Gallatin 22.64, and Hendersonville. Millersville is 0.13, and Hendersonville is somewhere on it.
I don't even see Hendersonville on there. Westmoreland was adjusted, Portland was adjusted,
Would you assume that Hendersonville was left alone? And I don't remember this. This was before my time.
This is a while ago. This is when Larry Hinton was the board
Right.
chair. So this was a decision that the board made back then. So this is, the numbers are from basically from that vote back in 2006.
Okay.
So that's really all that is. It's not tied to any type of funding.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes a difference, I guess, when you run your reports and see per capita, and see how much circulation that kind of stuff per capita when you run those types of reports. And it obviously means something to the levels that they're set at, which we look at when we look at the standards.
So do you need a signature on this
I need a
as
signature
well?
on that. I just want to give you some background to why the distribution is like it is about the decision that was made by the board.
Okay. So do we need a motion on that, or is this just on this signature? Okay. Does someone want to make?
Can we check with the director, see if this jives with what their understanding is?
still an accurate representation of our county.
Yes.
I put you having it recorded then.
Because Gallatin was down.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
and this is 2015,
2015,
right? I mean,
yeah.
if you look at the population growth in Gallatin.
I think we could sign it and revisit it.
Yeah.
later. I mean, that's
Can
not
that-
gonna affect your funds.
Yeah, so this is.
Right, this does not affect funding at all. So,
Right, so you compare that.
so and that would have to be us. And we could do that as a special call work study, do a work study, not a special call meeting, but a work study, just to take a look at it. We could do that at some point in time. And, it's not something we have to do right now or today.
But it's something we have to sign in order for them to get their money.
Right, we do need to sign this. So I am open for a motion, to sign this population service area.
How often do
My motion.
we revisit this?
So this is, usually it's not, it is what it is normally, the decision is made. If you guys decide that you want to revisit it, I would like to tell you that at some point, and then I'll, forward that to the state librarian.
So I motion to sign it.
Okay. Do I have a second? I've got Erica with a second. I saw her first, I'm sorry. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so, I'll see you after, we'll just over and we'll move on. Okay, so, now, have we got everything? All discussion of that is good. Okay, we can move on to, the bylaws. We have worked on these. We dug very deep into our souls to get these, where they are. Yeah, I mean, we did. I mean, we met and we discussed and we revised. And thank you, Ruth, for taking it apart and putting it back together with the grammar Nazis, for us. So, we are very appreciative. And, you've had it for the right amount of time and all that, so we can now, I will entertain a motion for someone to say, let us adopt these bylaws.
I make a motion.
Before we start, a report on this, before we vote on it, it's according to the agenda here.
Oh, okay, Billy, just tell us what we did.
Give them a report.
Okay, just in a nutshell, we did work for months. We had a committee to go through the old bylaws and came up with the new ones because we had changed back from the old system to 5 different libraries who have the authority as an entity. So what we did is we had to come up with new bylaws. So we worked for months and did mega amounts of research. We brought it back to the board maybe twice, and people had input on what they liked and didn't like, and we finally came up with these bylaws, and I hope all our new folks had a chance to read them. Do you have any questions? It's pretty clear as mud. So. Okay. So that's it. That's our report.
All right. Debbie made the motion.
Second.
Jim second. Okay. And on this one, I'm not going to do a roll call vote either. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. We now have a new set of bylaws. We are thrilled. And all. So, I will see you in September the 13th.
Missing one last motion.
Yeah, I know. We'll see you in September the 13th. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Somebody. Okay. All in favor?